Good evening. Good evening. How are we this evening? Any updates on anybody? Or are things pretty much where they were? Pretty much? Okay. Well, we won't get too excited then about anything going on with her brother. Now, she went down, I was told she just went down to see him. Is there more to it than that?
Went down there because he was supposed to have tests done yesterday morning.
Okay.
And they got him all prepped and got him in there and came out and said, we can't do it because we trusted him.
Now that's a liver transplant, right?
No.
Or what?
This is her younger brother.
Oh, okay. Well, see, I
Well, he's having breathing problems, he's coughing real bad, and I think they're gonna do the heart test.
oh, okay. See what's going on.
But he's home, and she said today he was doing something.
So he was supposed to have some pretty invasive tests, and they felt like they couldn't do them because of his.
Yeah, they took him off of his.
They couldn't check the bad problem because of another problem.
Right.
Yeah.
They
Okay.
were aggravated because they thought they should have done that before they were caught.
Yeah.
And Joyce Mason called and she said she got to have prayer for her grandson Kyle. That he woke up this morning covered with blisters from head to toe.
Reacting to something.
They've got him in the hospital.
I guess. Yeah. Wow. How old is he?
Yeah.
Give me a ballpark. 312, 312, 19, or 36. Give me a ballpark there, you know?
Well, I know her grandchildren are strong in the 20s and 30s, but if it's a baby, it's a great grandchild.
No, she's got the baby at home.
Okay, so it's a daddy.
We're losing ground real fast.
I thought it was his brother. I don't know. I don't even know.
God knows.
We've lost one wing, and it looks like the other one's kind of wobbling a little bit, so. You going like this? Okay. Well, let's keep those families in our prayers as we go through things.
Everybody see, Denisa, Daniel, she posted her, I think it was her sister, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. You can remember her prayers.
Is it Dina?
Deborah.
Deborah Gears?
Yes.
Am I right? Yeah. So she's there's some issues there that need to be looked at, so keep her in your prayers. Anybody have anything else? It's always a good idea to check our fellowship site on Facebook because a lot of things get posted. I'm glad to see that folks are finally learning that if you have a prayer need, you can post it there, and most of our members will see it because I know I've got mine set up on my news feed to where that's one of the first things that always pops up. If anything's been posted there, it'll show up quickly, so that's a good thing. Well, good. You know, there are, we can talk all day about the pros and cons of the internet, but it can be a fabulous source of communication. Amen. It is a good way to keep up with each other and send out messages and notes and news items and remind people of activities and things like that. So, you know, not all bad. Not all bad. I'd like us to look tonight at Proverbs 6. We're going through what I call some of the great lists of the Bible, or great Bible lists. My set of lists, I've got 12 of them down here, are pretty arbitrary. You know, some of them you just choose to make up, like, you know, the Beatitudes are not really given as a list, but, you know, you can make a list out of them very easily. When you list the sins of the flesh, you know, that's actually a list. Fruits of the Spirit, actually a list, you know. Some of them are, some of them aren't. But they make for some fascinating and fun Bible study. And it's kind of a change of pace from just taking a book and grinding through it, you know, a few verses at a time. There is a place for both. I think the lists kind of broaden our perspective on things a little bit. And I find this one in Proverbs 6 quite fascinating. Let me read it for you. It's beginning in verse 16, going through verse 19. It's very short, just 4 verses. There are 6 things the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to him. Haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked schemes, feet that are quick to rush into evil, a false witness who pours out lies, and a man who stirs up dissension among brothers.
Amen.
Pretty interesting list. It fascinates me as I look at this list that all of these 7 things have to do with social interaction. This is obviously not intended to be a thorough and comprehensive list of everything the Lord hates. It does not mention idolatry. I think the Lord hates that. It does not mention adultery. There are many things here. It doesn't mention incest. It doesn't mention desecration of the dead. It doesn't mention dealing in slavery. I mean, you can make a whole list of things that we know are detestable to God and that alienate us from God that are not listed here. This is a very specific kind of list. It's not meant to be a comprehensive catalog or even a big category catalog of these are the 7 categories of things God hates. This is just a very specific list, and it goes along with the intention of a book like Proverbs. Proverbs is designed as and Proverbs is not a book so much as it is a collection. It's like the Psalms. It bothers me when people talk about the book of Psalms, because it's really not a book. It's a book in the sense that let me show you. It's a book in the sense that this is a book. There's no unity in this book at all. I mean, they have organized it a little bit more. This particular one, they've organized it around certain topics and categories, try to get most of the songs about praise here, most of the songs about church there. But this is just a collection. It's a random collection through a long period of history. You've got stuff that goes clear back to the Middle Ages in here. You've got some stuff that the music is provided by Bach or Beethoven. You've got some hymns in here that are written by Martin Luther, Charles Wesley. These guys go way back. Martin Luther, 1500s. And then we've got contemporary stuff. We've got stuff in here by the Gaithers. We've got stuff in here by Maranatha and some of those groups that we would consider actually contemporary for us. So, it's a collection. That's kind of what the book of Psalms is. It's a collection. We know that some are attributed to David, others to the sons of Asaph or Asaph. There's one attributed to Solomon, one attributed to Moses. There are a number of them that are anonymous, just there. And probably, from the best we can tell, they come from different ages in Jewish history. It's a collection. Proverbs even more so. Proverbs is very eclectic. It begins with an address of a king to his son, the crown prince. All this moralizing at the beginning. Listen to your mother. Listen to mother wisdom. Stay away from the street women. Avoid this. Use that. It's general advice of a king to his heir apparent. if you're going to lead the nation and be a great man and a godly leader, there's a certain moral character you have to maintain socially. Okay, I got that. But once you get into the rest of the book of Proverbs, I defy anybody in here to organize the book of Proverbs for me. Give me an outline, a logical outline of Proverbs, and you can't, because the book is literally chaotic. Verse 3 may have to do with marriage, verse 4 with the tongue, verse 5 with money, verse 6 with wives, just every verse is, or every 2 or 3 verses is something totally different. The best way to organize the book of Proverbs is to spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours reading through it, and every time you read a verse or a set of 2 or 3 verses that go together, you try to decide topically, okay, what topic does this kind of touch? This sounds like a marriage and family statement. So you have a little list over here you call marriage and family, and verse 9 goes there. And verse 10 and verse 26 and chapter 8 verse 9 and chapter 9 verse 13, those are money statements. And the best outlines, the best studies I've ever seen of a book like Proverbs are topical studies. Where you just collect everything that Proverbs says about this, or everything that it says about that, or everything it says, and that's about the best you can do on it. I mean, it is an incredibly chaotic book. It is just, obviously Solomon in his profound wisdom, he may have been wise, but he wasn't terribly organized. He just brought together the common sense wisdom of the age. The best comparison I can give you to a book like Proverbs is Poor Richard's Almanac, published by Ben Franklin. Because Ben Franklin did for American wisdom what Solomon did for Jewish wisdom. When Ben Franklin would publish his Poor Richard's Almanac, he would always have scattered throughout the almanac, why say, a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush, a penny saved is a penny earned. Stitch in time saves 9. Common sense, and what makes those wise sayings wise? They work. A bird in the hand is better than 2 in the bush. You may not have the best looking bird in the world, but it's in your hand, you don't have to catch it. The 2 in the bush may be big and fat, but you're not necessarily any guarantees there. A penny saved is a penny earned. If you save it, you got it. If you don't, it's out there. So, somebody says, well, is that what you're saying about Proverbs? Pretty much so, yeah. Most of Proverbs is just common sense.
The simplicity of it is something that we can understand and that we can benefit from.
Yes.
By studying and applying that. And it's a very simple thing. It's not a hard book at all. You don't understand, not like some of the others, because it's real. And it's just seems like it's shooting blank and just statements out and out and out.
I mean, he just, I've got an idea that somewhere in the palace, Solomon, if we're certain he's the author, had kept a collection of, and he had dialogue with wise people from all over the world. He was the first real international leader of Israel. So he would have heard, I suspect some of these proverbs came from Mesopotamia, some of them from Egypt, some of them from, Eastern European areas, the Greeks. Some of them came from the Arabs, from the tribes in the Middle East. This is just common sense.
It's almost like it's just almost like he kept a sheet of paper. Here I go, comparison. A sheet of paper out, and there's a thought into it. He wrote it down.
Hey, preachers have done that for centuries, haven't they? Do you have a collection of great quotes that you could use in a lesson if you needed them? Duh.
Yeah.
Somebody says, where do you get all that great stuff in your sermon? Well, I don't keep it all up here. I got too much other junk up there. I've got two things that are going for me in preaching. Number one, I do have excellent recall, mental recall. And number two, I have a fabulous resource library. I have about 4,000 books, about 4 file cabinets full of information. Somebody says, well, where do you get all that stuff? Well, it don't just fall together. You've got to go get it. And I've got articles that I clipped 30 years ago that I've still got. Because I read the article and it's like, dadgummit, I wish I'd have said that. I'm going to keep it. I'm going to say it one of these days. By the time I say it, it'll be so old nobody will know anybody else ever said it, and they'll think, wow, he's smart. Just like this. Do not exalt yourself in the king's presence, and don't claim a place among great men. It's better for him to say to you, come up here, than for him to humiliate you before a nobleman. Now that has to have been some kind of a royal court saying, where they're saying, hey, when you go in to see a king, don't toot your horn like you missed a big shot. If you're really an important person, he'll figure that out himself, and you'll be honored when he invites you in. But if you go in tooting your horn, and you ain't nobody to toot a horn over, you're going to look like a fool when he asks you to step off into the side room. Now, Jesus says the same thing, doesn't he, in one of his teachings, where he talks about, don't be the guy that wants to grab the seat right next to the host. Best thing you can do is sit at the end of the table, and then you're honored when he says, no, I want you to move up to seat 9. Hey, moving up from 30 to 9 is a lot better than moving from 2 down to 4. Okay? And that's the whole point here. I love the quote from one of the coaches, though, at the NCAA championship. He said, our goal in being here is not to be here. He says, our goal in being in the championship game was not to get to the championship game. What's he saying? Our goal is to win. Our goal is to, being here is not why we didn't get here. We got here because we want to win a championship. I thought that was an interesting statement, because sometimes you forget, wow, we're in a championship game, we've achieved everything we need. Oh, no, we still got one more game to play. Kind of interesting. So a lot of these proverbs, you think about the old Yogi Berra quotes, when you come to a fork in the road, take it. Always thought that was a good one. I don't remember, there was something about something is 90% something and 50% something else, or I don't remember what the exact quote was, but it's, when you add it up, it's like 160%. That was the way it was. Those become unforgettable, but these Proverbs, a lot of them. Now, when you come to verse 16, you got this interesting statement, there are 6 things, yea, 7. This is a very common literary device in the Old Testament. In fact, if you go through ancient literature, if you go through ancient Akkadian Sumerian literature, if you go through ancient Babylonian literature, if you go through ancient Egyptian literature, you're going to find this same kind of language. It's like you're raising the stakes. Oh, I'll see you and raise you 5. And that's kind of what this is. There are 6 things. No, there are 7. And it's almost like you're really emphasizing how important this is. You're going to find several of these passages. If you were to look through the book of Proverbs itself, you're going to find several of these. Where, there are 3, no, there are 4. There are 6, no, there are 7. And you always end up with a number that is symbolic. 4s are big numbers in the Bible. 7s are big numbers in the Bible. 7 is the number of completion. If you've got a list that has 7 in it, it's as complete as it can be. Because God's number for completion is what? How many days did God spend in creation? 6, no, 7. See, that's the whole idea. Because that 7th day he created the Sabbath, so you actually have we don't talk about the 6 days of creation, do we? Although technically that's what you have. We talk about the 7 days of creation. We talk about 10 commandments. We talk about the 3 members of the Godhead, the 4 corners of the earth, the 12 tribes of Israel. In heaven, how many people are there? 144,000. 12 times 12 times 10 times 10. I guarantee you look through Revelation, every number you see is a multiple of 4, 12, or 10. Almost without exception. They're just there. You know. So these numbers are important. And this is one of those kind of ideal lists. If you're going to talk about things that God just can't stand, you got to have at least 7. 7's a good number. 6, not quite. What's the mark of the beast? What's his number? 666. Later on, we're told that Jesus' number is 777. Why? Because what is that commercial they have? 6 is greater than 1, and 7 is greater than 6. So, this numbers in the Bible are fascinating to me because they really do have a lot of significance. That's why when you get to the book of Acts chapter 1 and they all are sitting around chewing the fat and talking about the meaning of life, Peter looks up and says, by the way, we only have 11 apostles. How are we going to fix that? Well, it's obvious. We got to pick a 12th one. Why? Because you got to have 12 apostles. Because 11 is a lousy number. Same thing with the 12 tribes of Israel. Once you take Levi and make them the priesthood and remove their tribal status and scatter them amongst all the tribes, how many tribes are you left with? 11. So how do you solve that problem? Do you know? A couple of you may. You take the tribe of Joseph and split it into Ephraim and Manasseh. And 1 divided by 2 is 2, and 2 and 10 gets you back to 12. So now you got 12 tribes. Got to make the math work. Got to make the math work. This is part of the fascination of studying the Bible. This is the kind of stuff you get from reading cover to cover. The broad picture stuff, because these numbers pop up all over the place. So here he talks about 6 things the Lord hates and 7 that are detestable. Again, this is an example of what's called Hebrew parallelism. You haven't said anything new. If he hates it, it's detestable. If it's detestable, he hates it. It's the same thing. That's like saying he's a good man and a fine person. I haven't told you anything new. I've just said it 2 different ways. In the Hebrew Bible, that's done often. The whole book of Psalms is built around double phrases, where you say it and then you re-say it. Or you say it A-B and then you repeat it B-A. The king is a good man. A fine person is the ruler. A-B-B-A. Very common. This is all very common stuff. You'll notice, too, in your book of Proverbs, it's written in poetic form, isn't it? See the stanzas? You don't have the narrative blocks. You have the stanzas, don't you? So it's all written in poetic form. So we expect when we read it to see those kind of literary devices going on all the time. And so, you know, if you've done like me and you spent your lifetime majoring in studying the Old Testament and Hebrew word structure and things like that, you just, you know, when you read this, it just jumps all over at you. You just see it in every phrase. So it's very common and kind of neat. So, you know, if I knew that God hated something, wouldn't that be something you'd like to kind of stay away from?
Amen.
You know? I mean, if God looks at a certain thing and says, that disgusts me, I hate it, I don't want to touch that one. I don't even want to flirt with that one. I don't even want to look at that one. And what gets me is these 7 things that God despises, some of them are very commonly practiced.
Yes.
These are things people do all the time. Haughty eyes. Hate the word haughty. Haughty. Sounds like a southern term. Lousy child, that's so haughty. That sounds like it's like not quite hot, but it's getting there. It's haughty. You know, it's kind of like almost hot. It's haughty. Haughty is a word we don't use, and so it bothers me in translations, and I like the translation I use quite a bit, but it bothers me anytime translators translate it with a term that means no more than the term they translated. You might as well read the Hebrew as to read the word haughty. Most of us don't use that word. The average guy on the street, you ask him what haughty means, can't tell you what haughty means. Now somebody says, well, I know what it means. You know why? Because you grew up in church all your life and preachers told you what it meant. That's why you know what it means. But what if you go out on the street and give this to a guy who's never been in church a day in his life? He's not going to know what that means. What does it mean when you say haughty? What is haughty?
Proud, arrogant.
Proud, arrogant. So what's being condemned here? It's a figure of speech, isn't it? Haughty eyes. Somebody that just projects an arrogant look about him.
Yes.
Which means that the implication is this person is oversold on themselves. They are the center of the self-centeredness. That's what's being condemned here. Haughty eyes is simply a figure of speech that describes the look of somebody who is arrogant, self-centered. Is there a sin in the Bible that is more roundly condemned over and over again than arrogance? How many rulers in the Bible are brought down by God because God says you are proud? In fact, the Bible says God opposes the proud and exalts the humble. Pride is probably the number one sin in the Bible. If you really want to list, another list, by the way, the 7 deadly sins. Where are they in the Bible? Where's that list in the Bible? The 7 deadly sins. Help me out. Come on, you people now. Okay, I'll help you out. It's not there. The 7 deadly sins was an invention of the medieval British church, and is basically a Catholic invention, Church of England Catholic invention. It was a literary device. It may have come from John Bunyan. Don't quote me, but it may have come out of the writings of John Bunyan. Sure. Now see, we're going out on the internet here, and so one of these days, we're probably going to get this hideous post from somebody in Australia or Poland saying, what kind of morons are you? Don't you know where those 7 deadly sins come? They're not in the Bible. Now, are they each of those sins discussed in the Bible? Sure, but not as a collection in that order. But in my opinion, if I were going to start with 7 deadly sins and put them in rank order, I'd put pride at the top. No question. In fact, Jesus says that if you're going to become his disciple, what's the one thing you have to do first? You have to deny yourself. Did you catch that? What's the one thing you got to get out of the way? You. You got to get you out of the way. Because that is the biggest thing between you and God is you. Okay? People say, oh, it's the church, it's the hypocrites. No, it's you. The rest of that's just looking for an excuse. I'll use you as an excuse so that I can continue to worship and serve me instead of submitting to God. You know, any port in storm. Anything I can get to that'll excuse me. Which is, by the way, a very selfish thing to do too, and trying to constantly excuse and justify ourselves for everything we do. The Bible talks a great deal about be not deceived. You know, what does Paul say? He says a man in sins like a man who looks in the mirror and turns around and walks away, and straightway, King James says, and straightway forgets what he looks like. You look at yourself in the mirror and you see what's there, and then you walk away and say, I don't really look that bad. You know, I remember how I looked when I was 26. That's how I look. That's why so many of you, when you started your Facebook page, posted a picture of some guy from the beach as your profile pic. I've still got women all over the country that think I look like, Robert Redford. It works for me. Young Robert Redford, I might add.
Doug, I wonder if that's not why that David was a man about God's own heart, because David didn't strike me to be haughty. He was powerful and everything else, but when Nathan came to it, pointed out his sin, he just seemed like haughtiness was as weak as he was, and a lot like me.
Depends on where you are on the continuum.
Thank you.
I think he was pretty haughty the night he brought his girlfriend into the palace.
Yeah.
So, I think the thing in my mind, and again, this comes from years of just reflecting, the thing to me that impresses me about David is that no matter how far afield David got, and he got pretty far afield on several occasions, he always knew where home was.
Amen.
He always found his way back. There was always a part of him that wanted to have fellowship with God and that would come back. And that's why when Nathan threatened the alienation from God is when it just got all over David, and he said, because the next thing he said in Psalm 51 was, take not your Holy Spirit from me.
Amen.
He says, I don't want to lose that. And so, I wish it would rain. Anyway, aren't you glad we're here? The second thing he talks about is a lying tongue. One of my topics I've been talking with my kids in school this week about is honesty. And I asked them, I said, how often do you tell the truth? If you were going to put a percentage on it, what percentage of the time would you say you tell the truth? And of course, I love my kids because kids are honest. I'll ask them, I'll say, do you tell the truth all the time? No, I really don't. No. I wish our adults were that honest. Because they're actually being honest with me about that. They're being honest about not being honest. How often do you tell the truth? How easy, I guess another way to put it is, how easy is it for you to lie? Or to modify the facts a little bit, to make them, massage them, to make them sound a little better. I love listening to these politicians. I was misquoted. It amazes me how often some of them are misquoted. It sounds to me like you're just not being very clear about what you're saying. If I look up and say that's a bad policy and ought to be done away with, I don't see how you can misinterpret that. I just said it's bad and you need to do away with it. I need to man up, stick with that. Or you miss the context. Anybody who talks in the 21st century about context is so out of touch with reality, it's not funny. We live in an age of one-liners, one-sentence quotes. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. What's the maximum you can use in Twitter? 120, what is it, 140 characters. Now, you write a sentence down sometime and count the characters, and you're going to realize you can't say much. That's the world we live in, folks. If you aren't smart enough to adjust your public statements to a 140-character clarification, you're not smart enough to be president. I'm sorry. Because you're going to be quoted that way the rest of your life. Every time you say something, it's going to be reduced to 140 characters. And preachers are the same way. You got to realize, hey, you got to be clear about what you say. You don't have to be blunt, you don't have to be crude, you don't have to be insulting, but you need to be clear. Lying tongue. There are so many ways to lie. You can leave the truth unsaid. and let a lie understood to stand. That's lying. You know, we think so many times that lying is just when you actually just make something up that ain't so, and then you blurt it out, there it is, now I lie. Did you do it? No, I didn't. And you're standing there with the smoking gun in one hand and a bloody knife in the other. Did you do it? No, I didn't. You liar, you liar, you liar. But there are so many ways to lie. If you don't believe it, go sit in court one day. I've sat in child custody hearings. I've testified in many child custody hearings. I never heard so much stuff in my life. Do you know why judges don't allow you to bring a lot of character witnesses in? Like if me and my wife are fighting over custody of the kids, okay, I'm going to call in 75 people that I know that say I'm a really great guy, right? I'm not going to call in somebody like George. Because George will say, now let me tell you about it. But what's she going to do? She's going to call in and say, so I've heard judges say, I've heard this many times, George, I bet you've heard this too. He'll say, I'm going to allow you 3 character witnesses each. So you better make them the best 3 you've got. You know, whoever your 3 big hitters are, whoever can really stroke that ball out of the park, man, you bring them in. I want to hear your 3 best shots. After that, I don't want to hear anything else. I don't need to hear 50 people on each side lying to me about how great you are and not telling me the rest of the story. A lot of times when I counsel married couples, I'll start by counseling them separately. I'll bring her in, talk to her, bring him and talk to him. And when I get done listening to the 2 of them, I'm not sure I'm talking about the same people. He ain't half as bad in person as she says he is, and she's not half as bad in person as he says she is. And the world's not safe if either one of them are doing what the other one says they're doing. The world's not a safe place. We need to incarcerate them both in heavy security the rest of their lives. But what are you doing? Well, I want the counselor to be on my side because I want him to believe that I'm the nice person and he's not. And I'll get this a lot when they come in for counseling. He'll say, well, I just wish you could do something with her because I can't. And then she'll come in and say, I've talked to him, and I don't think he'll listen to me. Would you see if he'll listen to you? And both of them are wanting me to fix the other one, and neither one of them are really willing to look at themselves, and there's a complete lack of honesty. I told my kids this, and I'll stick by it. I've been married 44 years, and I've never lied to my wife. I've never lied to her, and I never will. Now, that can be brutal sometimes. I'm going to tell you something, ladies. If you're married to me, honey, don't come in with an ugly-looking dress on and ask me what I think of your dress, because I'm going to tell you what I think of your dress. Now, I will say it, this is as diplomatic as I can be. I don't care for that dress at all, but you're the one that has to wear it, and honey, if you like it, you buy it. And I'm not ashamed of you. If you wear that dress, I won't like the way it looks, but I'll still be proud of you. I'll still love you. I'll go anywhere you want to go with you. But I'm not going to stand here and lie to you and say, well, honey, you look good in anything. No, you don't neither. The stuff you put on you don't look good in. Anybody don't believe that's lying to himself. And I started her out young and early that way, and we just kind of went on from there.
Here's a verse that applies to me and you.
Oh, here we go.
Even fools seem smart when they are quiet.
That's true. That's true. Even fools seem smart when they're quiet.
Well, you know, there is a Proverbs that.
Yeah, what's the opposite of that? Better to be thought a fool than to
Speak and remove all doubt.
than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. That's the flip side of that coin, isn't it? Yeah, fool sits there and doesn't say anything. For all you know, he's a genius, man. You don't know what that brilliant mind's thinking. He may be thinking the stupidest stuff in the world, but at least he hasn't told you what it is. I like that. Okay. So the lying tongue, I just think we really need to do an everyday honest assessment of ourselves about how much we really value honesty. And we need to start with ourselves. The beginning of honesty is self-honesty. You got to look at yourself first. If you aren't capable of looking at yourself honestly, how are you going to be honest with other people? Hands that shed innocent blood. Did you notice the word innocent? Does the law of Moses allow the shedding of guilty blood? Yes. Eye for an eye, tooth for tooth. The ancient law of what's called lex talionis, the law of retaliation. You kill my brother, I get to kill you. Now, I can't kill you, both your cousins, your wife, and your 3 kids. That's not okay. That's overkill. But you are allowed to avenge a justifiable or an unjustified homicide. Are you allowed to take life in war? Yes, you are. Obviously. You read the Bible. I mean, how many times one reason David didn't get to build the temple is because God says, hey, man, you got so much blood on your hands. Amen. You know, I don't want my house built by a man of peace. Which also tells me that Solomon did not get engaged, as most heir apparents do, in leading the military. Usually you're the king, your oldest son, but of course Solomon's not his oldest son. But the heir to the throne is usually the commander-in-chief of the army, or the military forces. That's the way ancient systems work. But David, many people in the Old Testament, Abraham shed blood to free his nephew. On and on and on the list goes of so many famous characters that shed blood. Now, when Peter chooses to shed blood to protect Jesus, he is told he can't do that. Because in that case, the blood shed would be innocent, wouldn't it? Jesus does not hold those that arrest him as culpable in his death. So, innocent blood. In other words, people that just have no respect for life. Does this sound familiar? And somebody says, oh yeah, those people in ISIS. How about some of the kids we see? Did you see this last week? The community just outside of Atlanta, where they've now arrested 9 people for first-degree murder. What happened was 2 girls get in a fight after school. This was a continuation after school. They were fighting over a boy, and they took it out into the street in their neighborhood, and they started catscalling and grabbing hair and punching and hitting. And all of a sudden the mamas come out and the aunts come out and a bunch of the kids' friends come out, and next thing you know, you literally have a free-for-all brawl going on. One guy pulls a knife, stabs a kid in the throat. The kid subsequently dies. The police chief has arrested both girls that started the fight, the 2 aunts that got involved, the mother that got involved, and 4 other kids, including the guy with the knife, and charged them all with capital murder. Because according to Georgia state law, if you're involved in a riot-type situation like that, anybody who participates is considered culpable for the death. They contributed. So 9 of them have been charged with first-degree murder. Now tell me that's not just a total disrespect. And was the kid involved? Maybe so, but he wasn't even the main party. He just wrong place, wrong time, And we see that more and more and more in our culture. You don't have to go to ISIS terrorists to see this disregard for life. And I dare bring up the abortion question. Since when does the rights of the mother override the rights of the child? I'm not saying that it's either or. It should be both and. But since when do the rights of the mother, especially when abortion so often in this country is used simply as a form of birth control? Amen. You forget to take the pill Friday night, so you abort the kid Wednesday morning. Birth control. which means that, you know, recreational sex is fine. Just anybody you want, anywhere you want, anytime you want, we can always fix it later. I think that raises some serious questions. What's your attitude toward life? What's your attitude toward life? Hands that shed innocent blood. A heart that devises wicked schemes. Some people always have an angle, don't they? They've always got a Bernie Madoff mentality. How can I make this work for me? I don't get, you know, this is almost the sociopathic type person. How can I gain the advantage of, by the way, if you get hurt in the process, it's your fault for being stupid? Hey, don't get mad at me just because I'm smarter than you are. And a lot of these people that do this kind of thing, this is their attitude is. I'm just being rewarded for being smart. The fact that it's maybe not honest or at least shady on the edge of the law, the fact that people suffer because of it. Do any of you take AARP magazines? Magazine? Yeah, I do. Yeah, old people. Most people don't like to admit that. One of my best friends in high school just posted a picture on Facebook. He had taken a photograph of all the cards in his wallet that show how old he is. He's got his Medicare card and his AARP card and his senior discount permanent entry card into the national parks. He's got all, and his Metro card where he lives for senior citizens. He got all his senior citizen cards lined up, took a picture of them. He says, "Tell me I don't feel old today." AARP in their magazine every month has a regular feature in there where they talk each month about scams that are going around that take advantage of older people. The guy that goes around the neighborhood finding all these things wrong with your house and ends up costing you $60,000. And when you finally look at the work he's done, he hasn't done any work at all except maybe a little patch here and paint there. And we got that goes on here in town all the time. In fact, I can give you 3 or 4 names. You know, the internet, the people on the internet. Oh, your bank security has been violated. If you'll send me your account number, we'll straighten it out. First of all, you don't ever send anybody any number of anything. And second, your bank doesn't operate that way. If I have a problem with my bank calls me. Okay? That's the way that works. If Verizon has a problem with my account, Verizon calls me. Huh? They don't send me an email through a third party in India somewhere.
They don't put you on hold.
Well, they do that, but I usually wait until they call me.
That's when you call them. They put you
Oh,
on
yeah.
hold.
Well, I don't do that. I go to the bank. When I'm dealing with a problem, I like to look at the person I'm dealing with. But anyway.
How do you go to India?
Well, I've always wanted to travel, Dale. You know what I do when somebody calls me on a cold call and I hear a foreign accent? I know this is terrible. This is terribly prejudicial. I hang up. I don't talk to you. I don't want to talk to you. I'm sorry. I don't want to talk to you. My wife, and you know, I love my wife. She's on the internet a lot more than I am. She goes to a lot of sources, and she got a thing that popped up on the screen on the computer, and it locked the screen. It locked the computer down. And it said, your Apple account has been compromised. To straighten out the problem, call this number. And so in a moment of panic, she called that number. $900 and a hard drive later, we got it fixed. Because what she did the minute she called that number, it accessed the codes in the computer, went through the hard drive, stripped everything out, and left the computer dead. Now, fortunately, none of our security codes are on her computer. You know, or they'd have had all them, our bank accounts, our, you know, passwords to all of our things and all of that. So, Heart that devises wicked schemes. A lot of that goes on, doesn't it? Have you seen this new thing that's come out now? The Prime Minister of Iceland just had to resign because of this offshore money scheme that is everybody sending their money to these banks in Panama, and now they've said there are at least 1,600 American corporations involved, and they've said that they've gone through all this released information now, and over 35% of their accounts are from China. And they're estimating that the Chinese economy has been built of over $1 trillion in the last 12 months. By corporate members in China shifting their funds under the table offshore to avoid taxes. You can assume there will be a long series of executions in China over the next 6 months. That's the way they punish you for that kind of stuff. Feet that are quick to rush to evil. One of the most memorable things I can remember from California is you can always tell when there's an accident on the freeway in California because the traffic, both directions, and in California you're talking about 4 to 6 lanes each way, interstate. Gridlock. Nobody's moving either direction because wherever the accident is, everybody's almost at a complete stop wanting to look over the fence to see if there's any blood or anything from where somebody got killed in the accident. Looky-loos. Looky-loos. People are fascinated with terrible things that happen. Watch it over and 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 over.
If they know anybody.
Well, there's lots of reasons.
Yeah.
But we have a fascination with weird stuff. And, some people just can't stay away from something bad going on. They want to see, they want to be there. Feet that are quick to rush into evil. This is also the fellow that just can't stay out of trouble. He just can't stay out of trouble. Somebody says, well, trouble just finds him. It don't work that way. Let me say that again. Trouble don't find you. You find it. It's like Yogi said, when you come to the fork in the road, take it. When you come to that choice where you see the appearance of evil, what does God say you're supposed to do? Walk away. If not, you found evil. Don't look up and say you found me. It's out there. It's just a matter of you avoiding it. Let's get done real quick. A false witness who pours out lies. The Bible talks a lot about that. Telling lies on people.
We've already talked about it in this list, which means it's got to be pretty important if you mention it twice.
Well, and really, hands that shed innocent blood, the word innocent there implies that you're wronging. I mean, there's a lot of this doing people wrong. Doing people wrong. Because when you pour out lies as a false witness, you're also you're convicting somebody of wrong. And of course, why did Jesus die? False testimony. Why did Stephen die? False testimony. What is one of the two beasts that is raised by Satan in the book of Revelation? What is he raised to go out and do? Lie to everybody. Lie to everybody. That's his ministry, is to lie. So, the Antichrist, you liar. So this false witness, and by the way, gossip is one of the major conduits of false witnessing. One of the major conduits. You ever gone on topics for White County? I think I've been there once or twice, and that was about enough. After throwing up the bag 3 times, I turned that off. Man, that's nasty stuff. You got some really sick puppies out there that just love to just dump dirt on people. And if they don't know it, they'll make it up. And if they do know it, they love to pass it on. And it's just nasty. It's just plain nasty. Well, I'll tell you, this is convicting stuff. And then this last one, the man who stirs up dissension among brothers. Family integrity. Whether it's spiritual family or whether it's physical family. You ever known somebody in a family that likes to stir the pot all the time? God says they're going to hell.
Amen.
Can I be a little more, can you put that in 140 characters? Let me be clear. God says you stir dissension among people, you're going to go to hell for it.
Amen.
It's wrong. I've seen it in the church way too many times. I've seen it in my own family in the church. My whole generation of kids in my family have been lost to the Lord because of this kind of garbage.
Amen.
Just infighting. Ugly stuff. My whole generation, I'm about the only one that even goes to church, much less does anything. That's sad. Because that then what am I thinking of? That gets amplified generation by generation. We lose our 7. We lose the 7 of us and our 26 kids and their 59 kids and their 126 kids. See what I'm saying? I mean, once you lose that one generation, it may be 10 generations before anybody comes back. If ever. It's sad. Sowing dissension among brothers. You want to really get me mad at you at church, start sowing discord. You'll get a visit from me. That's one of the, I don't bother, I'm probably not as good as I should about visiting, but you stir trouble in the church and you'll get a visit from me. And it won't be a friendly one to ask how you doing. I talked to my kids today about being loyal. I said, you know what loyal means? And they said, what does it mean? I said, that means if somebody picks on you, they're going to get a piece of me.
And that's what we need
Yeah.
to be with each other.
A bully starts picking on one of you guys, I'm going to step between you and them and say, excuse me, you got a problem with my friend?
Yes.
Oh, you do? Then I have a problem with you. You want to take it out back right now or you want to wait a while? And they all kind of laugh about it. And I said, hey, I love you guys. And if I love you, I'm loyal to you. And if I'm loyal to you, I'm going to take care of you. You don't mess with my people. You don't mess with my people. Now, I don't care what you do to me. You can hit me, smack me, spit on me, kick me, knock me down. I don't care. Call me what you want. You mess with my wife, I'm going to have a piece of you. You mess with my kids, I'm going to have 2 pieces of you. You mess with my grandkids, ain't going to be nothing left. Why? Loyalty. Our family will get together and we'll laugh and joke and we'll fight and fuss with each other and everything else, but you pick on somebody in our family, you're going to get a whole bunch of us. If you know my kids, you know that's true. They'll all come running at one time.
Right next to 10 with that monkey next to 10.
Mess with my people now.
But we ought to be that way with our church.
That's the first place it ought to be that way. You don't mess with my people. You mess with my people, I'm going to come see you. Because they're my people. They're not my people because I own you. You're my people because we're kin. We're blood relatives. Literally. Hey, appreciate you being with us. Let's close with a word of prayer. Father, watch over us and be with us. There's so much for us to think about, so many of these things. We pray that you'll just guide our hearts and just push us in areas where we need to be pushed, Father, because there's so many things that we need to work on, all of us. Just thank you for being patient with us. Thank you for delaying your coming until we can get some of these things maybe worked out in our lives. Thank you for guiding us and encouraging us and keeping your spirit within us, and just keep us holy, Father, and help us to grow each day. Be with our brothers and sisters that need our prayers. Be with them in their illnesses. We pray in Jesus' name.
Amen.